Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video on the Gooners and Gloves Podcast channel. In today's video, it's going to be the 78th Gooners and Gloves Podcast, and I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts on the Caleb Plant and Jermall Charlo fights happening this weekend. Caleb Plant versus Jose Rezendiz and Jermall Charlo versus Thomas LaManna. So I think this is going to be an exciting double header. So I thought I'd try something different and give you guys predictions for both. I wouldn't normally do this, as normally I would only focus on one fight, but I thought why not? It's an exciting double header. Obviously Caleb Plant and Jermall Charlo are both big names, and these are both two exciting and interesting fights. So I thought why not? I'd go on and predict both of them. So first I'm going to go over the Caleb Plant fight because that's the main event, and then I'll be going over the Jermall Charlo fight. That being said, if you want timestamps, I've got timestamps in the comment section if you would like to skip. So if you don't care about the Plant fight and want to instead watch the Charlo fight, feel free to use the timestamps. And obviously if you care about the Caleb Plant fight, then just stay tuned where you are because I'm about to go through it now. So really hope you guys enjoy this. Looking forward to being back on the boxing content. Obviously boxing, there just hadn't really been that many exciting fights over the past few weeks, but thankfully boxing is back. We've got some really exciting fights coming up, which I'm going to be making videos on. So really looking forward to that. I want to thank you guys for the support that you guys gave me on my top 5 boxing fights of 2025 so far short. I'm really happy with how well that did. So thank you guys for that, and there will be more shorts of that nature coming out very soon. But without further ado, let's get into my predictions for the Caleb Plant and Jermall Charlo fights, starting off with Caleb Plant versus Jose Rezendiz. So first of all, Caleb Plant's record is 23-2 with 14 knockouts, and Jose Rezendiz's record is 15-2 with 11 knockouts. So obviously similar knockout percentages, but ultimately Caleb Plant, as you can tell, is the more experienced fighter. He's got more fights, he's got more decorated names on his resume, such as, for example, Canelo Alvarez and David Benavidez, and obviously just has more experience in the ring. So obviously there is a clear experience difference here, and without a doubt Caleb Plant is the more experienced and more seasoned fighter. Rezendiz certainly not an easy fighter whatsoever. He's obviously tough, he's durable, and as you can see, he's still got 17 fights and with 11 knockouts. So he's definitely not somebody to just be messed with, and certainly not somebody to be taken lightly, but Caleb Plant is undoubtedly the favorite in this fight. In terms of my prediction, I have gone with Caleb Plant by points, and I'm going to go over some reasons why I think Caleb Plant will win this fight by decision. So let's first start off with Caleb Plant's fantastic footwork. So obviously, as we know, Caleb Plant has really good footwork. He's got, definitely very, I mean, he's got some of the best footwork in the division. He can really move around the ring. He can really cut off the ring. He can really get out of corners, get off the ropes, etc. So I think that Caleb Plant has fantastic footwork, and I think that's something that's going to be really difficult for Rezendiz, because obviously Jose Rezendiz, sorry guys, I don't know if it's Jose or Jose, so I'm going to stick with Jose for now. I said Jose a couple of times, so sorry, I'm not fully sure which one it is, but I'm just going to stick with Jose going forward. So Jose Rezendiz is somebody who obviously we know is a pressure fighter. He absolutely loves putting on pressure. He loves making it a bit of a brawl. He loves cutting off the ring, and that's something that obviously has given him a lot of success till now. However, that being said, obviously Caleb Plant has such good footwork, good head movement, good angles, etc, that I think this is going to be really tough. I think because of the elite footwork and movement from Caleb Plant, as well as his really good angles, his great head movement, I think he's going to make it a really tough night for Rezendiz in terms of cutting off the ring. I think somebody that has really good footwork, really good movement, it's really tough to cut the ring off. It's really tough to put pressure on them, and I think that's something that Rezendiz is undoubtedly going to experience with Caleb Plant. Obviously, when Rezendiz is trying to come forward, trying to put that pressure on, trying to really impose himself, I think that Caleb Plant is going to be able to negate this with the footwork, the movement. Whenever Rezendiz gets him against the ropes, I think he'll do really well to pivot his way out, and that's something else that Caleb Plant's really good at. He's really good at pivoting out of situations, so that's definitely going to be a big factor in this fight, in my opinion. I think Caleb Plant's footwork and movement, head movement, footwork, angles are going to be really effective, and these are really going to help him to negate that pressure from Rezendiz, because I do expect Rezendiz to be the aggressor early on. Definitely, Caleb Plant's obviously a little bit more of a slow starter, likes to work his way into the fight, whereas obviously with Rezendiz, we know that he's aggressive, he's fast, and ultimately likes to kind of put that pressure on early. So I think that's going to be a very big thing for Caleb Plant in this fight. I think he's going to be able to use his footwork, head movement, and angles to make Rezendiz miss, and obviously through making him miss and through tiring him out, through chasing him, he's obviously going to be able to tire out Rezendiz. So I think that's going to be really important for Caleb Plant. I think is that footwork and the movement, and I think it's something that he's got really good at. I think he's got great head movement, great angles, and ultimately just really good reflexes, and I think he's definitely going to be able to make use of these to counter that aggressive and very explosive style of Jose Rezendiz. Second of all, he's got really fast hands. Obviously, we know that Caleb Plant has really quick hands, and I think that's something else that's really going to help him against Rezendiz. Obviously, a pressure fighter like Rezendiz, the absolute dream for a pressure fighter is to fight an opponent that doesn't really throw punches back and is also really slow on the counter. And obviously, Rezendiz has been able to get several knockouts in this exact approach, and it's just an absolute dream for a pressure fighter to fight an opponent that doesn't really throw back, is quite slow on the counter, and ultimately just can't put punches together. But in terms of Caleb Plant, this isn't the case. Caleb Plant has really quick hands and he's really sharp, and I think those fast hands are really going to help him, because when Rezendiz is trying to put the pressure on and trying to throw the heavy shots, Caleb Plant will come straight back at him with a really fast combination. So maybe Rezendiz might throw 2 heavy shots and then Caleb Plant comes back with like a 4-5 punch combination really fast in a flurry, and I think this is something that's really going to make Rezendiz come unstuck, if you will. I think when Rezendiz sees that hand speed and sees those really fast combinations, I think he's going to come unstuck and he's going to really struggle to deal with that. So that's something else that I think is going to do really well to negate that fast pressure from Rezendiz, is the fast hands. If Rezendiz is throwing a couple of heavy shots, but Caleb Plant is maybe throwing 4-5 punch combinations and really just tiring out and really confusing Rezendiz, I think that's something that's going to do really, really well. And obviously it's something that I think is going to frustrate Rezendiz. And again, a counter puncher doesn't do very well when they're frustrated, when they're angry, because obviously they start to make mistakes, they start to charge forward, they start to get a bit reckless. So I think that really fast, slick boxing by Caleb Plant is going to undo the relentless pressure and the power from Rezendiz, and obviously the toughness from Rezendiz. Obviously Rezendiz is incredibly durable, no doubt about that, and I'll get into that in a minute. But I think that the boxing from Caleb Plant will do really well to frustrate him and also negate that really fast, really explosive style that he likes to make use of. As mentioned before, obviously Rezendiz is somebody who relies a lot on pressure and aggression. However, as we've seen in some of his previous fights, he does tend to get outboxed by slick movers, and that's certainly something that Caleb Plant is. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure that Rezendiz will have learned from those fights and is going to make improvements, no doubt about that. This isn't a disrespect on Rezendiz. He's a tough fighter, he's a solid fighter, and he can definitely bang, he can really hit hard. And I'm sure his coaches will have seen in the past that he did tend to get outboxed by really efficient and really slick movers, and I think that's something that absolutely Rezendiz is going to be aware of. However, I do think that Caleb Plant is definitely a level above and will be able to use his slick boxing, his slick counters to completely frustrate and ultimately start to pick apart Rezendiz on the feet. As mentioned before, Rezendiz isn't particularly defensively tight, so when he tries his swarming style and when he comes forward, he does tend to be open to punches, he tends to be open to counters, he tends to be open to shots to both the face and body. And again, I think that's something that Caleb Plant is going to take advantage of. Caleb Plant does really well with counter punching. I think Caleb Plant definitely has a solid counter punch, and I think that's something that's really going to help him against Rezendiz, especially when Rezendiz is coming forward. Maybe one of his hands is down, maybe his body's a bit uncovered, and we know that Caleb Plant is really good at finding those gaps and really getting the shots off. Even in some of his tougher fights against the likes of Canelo Alvarez and David Benavidez, he was still really making use of the counter punching and really making use of every single bit of space that he could find, and that's why he was able to take those fights into the deep waters, round 9, round 11, etc. And I think that ability to find the gaps and find the space will do really well for him to again outbox and also take advantage of the defensive fragilities. However, the reason why I think this will be points and not a knockout is for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think because of Rezendiz's aggressive and explosive style, I think that's something that Caleb Plant is going to be aware of, and to be fair, these styles have given Caleb Plant problems in the past, so I think this is going to be more of just kind of a mature professional performance where he's not going to want to do anything stupid, he's not going to want to get himself caught with these really heavy bombs. So for that reason, I think his priority is going to be to just outbox Rezendiz, keep him at bay, and ultimately just take it to the distance. We also know that obviously Caleb Plant is somebody who's very seasoned in the 12-round game. He's fought the 12 round numerous times. He knows what he's doing. So I think that's the first reason. I think this is going to be more of just kind of a mature, disciplined performance. Avoid the heavy shots of Rezendiz and ultimately just keep him at bay. But also vice versa, Rezendiz is obviously incredibly tough. He's only been stopped once in his professional career. And obviously, as we know, Mexican fighters do tend to be, very durable, loads of heart. We obviously know that Mexican fighters have loads of heart, have loads of durability. It's always been part of Mexican boxing culture is, never say die, never give up. And that's something that Rezendiz certainly displays. We know that he's obviously powerful. He's very durable, and ultimately will give it his all. So for those two reasons, for the reasons that I think Caleb Plant will want to make this a more just mature professional performance, and also because Rezendiz is incredibly tough and durable, I think for those two reasons, this will be a points win. Obviously, I don't know if it'll be unanimous decision, majority decision, split decision, etc. Personally, I would say unanimous decision because I expect this to be relatively comfortable for Caleb Plant. However, I'm going to keep the prediction a bit more general and wide open and just say Caleb Plant by points or decision, however you want to refer to it as. And as mentioned before, I think the main reasons are footwork, head movement, fast hands, 12-round experience, and ultimately ability to counterpunch and frustrate his opponent. I think for those reasons, Caleb Plant will be able to outbox Rezendiz, and I think because of Rezendiz's over-reliance on pressure and aggression, and also his defensive fragilities, I think he himself will also struggle. However, because of Caleb Plant's, essentially matureness and wanting to just kind of make this a bit more of a just professional performance, keep Rezendiz at bay, don't get caught with the heavy shots, and also Rezendiz's very powerful and very determined boxing style, and ultimately just his ability to really get through fights and survive. I think for those reasons, this will be a Caleb Plant win on points. So I will now move on to the Jermall Charlo fight. So yeah, now I'm going to move on to Jermall Charlo versus Thomas LaManna. Okay guys, here we go. So we are now on to the co-main events, the other fight of this video, Jermall Charlo versus Thomas LaManna. Certainly another exciting fight. Jermall Charlo obviously returning to boxing for the first time since November of 2023, so he's definitely had quite a long layoff, over a year and a half now, whereas Thomas LaManna is on a 9-fight winning streak. His last loss was when he was brutally knocked out by Erislandy Lara in about a minute, but massive props to Thomas LaManna. He has bounced back from that loss and has gone on a 9-fight winning streak, and now has another massive opportunity against Jermall Charlo, and certainly an opportunity that he absolutely deserves. He's obviously been brilliant. He's been on a 9-fight winning streak. He's been really active. So props to Thomas LaManna, and it's good to see him get another opportunity in this massive spotlight. Jermall Charlo returning to boxing for the first time since November of 2023. So definitely a lot on the line for both fighters, and I think this will make for a really good co-main event. So Charlo's record sits at a perfect 33-0 with 22 knockouts, and LaManna's record is 39-5-1 with 18 knockouts. So as you can see, LaManna has more fights than Charlo. However, Charlo does have a higher knockout percentage, hasn't necessarily been getting the knockouts like in more recent fights. However, that being said, he still has a good knockout percentage, and LaManna, while not as high of a knockout percentage, certainly has some decent power himself and can definitely put together some good power himself. So my prediction for this one is Jermall Charlo by KO TKO, also just stoppage, basically just by stoppage. It could be KO, it could be TKO, whichever one it is. I think the fight, he will win the fight within the 12 rounds and will stop LaManna, sorry, the 10 rounds, not the 12 rounds. I do think he will stop LaManna within the 10 rounds. So let's go ahead and go over exactly why I think this will be the case. So starting off with So first, let's start off with Jermall Charlo. So obviously, as we know, he's got very sharp, very clean power, and that's something that he's able to do. So Jermall Charlo has always been really effective at how he delivers his power shots. You know, power shots have always been a strength of Charlo's, and he's certainly somebody who's always been very good at delivering, you know, in a good way. Obviously, he's not wild, he's not reckless, and I think this is something that Jermall Charlo has always, you know, been really good at. He's just very composed, very calm, and for that reason, he's really able to get the maximum power and the maximum sting out of his shots, because he doesn't swing wildly, he doesn't, you know, go super reckless. He's just very calm, very composed, and he's able to get those shots in a very, you know, very technical way. And I think that's something that Jermall Charlo definitely deserves props for. You know, other fighters tend to lose the power that they have because they swing really wildly and they just really try super hard to swing as hard as they can and headhunt as much as they can. But I think Jermall Charlo is someone who's good at just throwing the shots in a calm, calculated, and composed way, and for that reason, that efficiency allows him to get the maximum power out of his shots. So I think that's something he's going to be able to make use of against Thomas LaManna. Obviously, it won't be as good as before because he has had a long layoff. Rustiness will undoubtedly be a thing, and that's something that LaManna is going to want to take advantage of, is the rustiness of Jermall Charlo. But I think just kind of those like really good power shots that Jermall Charlo is able to land are ones that he'll be able to give LaManna some problems with. His Charlo's also got really good accuracy. We know that Jermall Charlo is somebody who's got great timing and great accuracy. The jab and the counter right hand in particular are really strong. However, he's just really good at at punching in general. So I think the timing and the accuracy will really help Jermall Charlo against LaManna. LaManna is somebody who, definitely has a decent output, definitely likes to put together a lot of punches, put together combinations, and ultimately, fight the fight at quite a fast tempo. And I think that's something that Jermall Charlo is going to be able to take advantage of, because he's going to be able to use his timing and use his accuracy, his jabs, his counter right hands, and ultimately, his uppercuts, his hooks. I think he'll really be able to use these punches to slow down LaManna and ultimately just kind of take the fight back to Charlo's pace. Charlo is somebody who definitely can up the tempo, but I think more generally likes to fight in a more like calm, calculated manner and keep the fight at a decently slow pace. Obviously, Charlo can definitely switch it up and can bring the pace up, but I would say that his preferred style is kind of at a more moderate, like a more intermediate to moderate pace, where it's kind of like sort of fast, but also Charlo's got enough time to think, enough time to get his combinations going. So I think the timing and the accuracy will really help, and I think that'll help against LaManna, who is definitely, he likes to put the pressure on, he likes to come forward, he likes to make the fight a bit quicker. So I think when he's trying to do that, it'll be really good from Charlo to be able to get those power shots going, and I think using his timing and accuracy, he'll really be able to do that. Charlo is somebody who also is really good with his patience as well. He's very patient. He really, he doesn't rush the knockout. He sets up the knockout with good ring control, and ring control and generalship is something else that Charlo is really good at. That ring generalship ability to dictate where the fight goes, get out of tight situations. I think that's something else that Jermall Charlo does really well, and I think Jermall Charlo will be able to use that patience and use that, calculated pressure to slow down LaManna and ultimately hit him with heavy shots. And I think as the fight goes on, he will be able to start tagging him more and more. And ultimately, as we know, Jermall Charlo is just a good finisher. 22 knockouts and 33 wins certainly says enough. He's somebody who, as mentioned before, he may not necessarily have had the knockout power recently, but I do think in this fight he'll be able to use, his patience, his calmness, and ultimately just his very good, very effective, and just very composed style. I think he'll be able to use all of that to get the finish. He'll be able to hurt LaManna and finish him off. I don't think the finish will come early. Definitely, I think this will be a late finish, maybe like between rounds 7 and 10, so like near the end of the fight, because obviously Jermall Charlo is coming off a long layoff. There's no denying that. He's certainly, hasn't had the experience in recent times like LaManna has. LaManna's obviously been very active. As mentioned before, he's on a 9-fight winning streak. So I do think for that reason, Charlo will struggle at first, and LaManna definitely will give him some problems. And LaManna certainly has his own advantages, which we'll get to in a second. But that being said, I do think that his Charlo's patience, his sharpness, his power, his timing, and his accuracy will allow him to break down LaManna and eventually stop him late on. I think that obviously Charlo's also going to want to actually get some rounds in. Obviously, he's been gone for so long. He's undoubtedly going to want to get some rounds in. I don't think he's necessarily even going to want to finish this early. And to be fair, LaManna is very powerful, so I'd be surprised if he was able to finish it early. So as much as I think it'll be a knockout, I think it'll be like a hard-fought knockout, which will definitely take some time and will take some patience on Charlo's end to be able to make it happen. But I do think that near the end of the fight, rounds 8 to 10, Jermall Charlo will be able to get the stoppage. In terms of LaManna, obviously LaManna, he's definitely big, he's tall, he's got good reach, he's got good, good combination punching, so he's definitely a threat, no doubt about that, and he has been getting his stoppages as of recently. He's definitely not weak, that's for sure. Definitely not as high of a knockout percentage as Charlo, but that being said, still some good power. But obviously, as we know, LaManna, he's definitely always been questioned for his chin. His chin hasn't always been the best. As mentioned before, the brutal stoppage against Erislandy Lara, but even in fights where he's won and he hasn't been stopped in, he's still been buzzed, he's still been shaken, he's still been hit with some heavy shots. So that's definitely something that LaManna has, is problems with his chin, and I think that's something that's going to help Charlo, especially because Charlo has really good power punching. LaManna definitely has some defensive vulnerabilities, particularly when he one thing that he does in particular is he tends to overreach his punches. As mentioned before, he's obviously quite long, and he's quite he definitely has great punches, he's got great shots, and he's got great shot selection. But one thing that he does, which is a bit of a vulnerability, is he always tends to reach in too much with his punches, and I think that's something that Jermall Charlo will be able to take advantage of. Obviously, Charlo's got fantastic uppercuts and hooks. In particular, I think Charlo's looping punches are also really good, and obviously when somebody leans in the way that LaManna does, you could definitely use a hook or an uppercut to tag them in the head, tag them in the body. So that's something else that LaManna definitely struggles with, is his vulnerability when he reaches in, and I think that's something that Jermall Charlo will be able to take advantage of. And LaManna, as much as he has been on a 9-fight winning streak, and don't get me wrong, it's fantastic, like I don't want to take anything away from LaManna, to bounce back from getting knocked out in a minute against Lara to be able to get 9 straight wins is fantastic, but naturally his level of opponent hasn't been quite as high as Charlo. I'm not saying it's been bad, it's definitely not been a bad level of opponent, but Charlo certainly has a bit more of a decorated resume in terms of who he's fought, and definitely has some some stronger names on his resume than LaManna. And yeah, so I think that's probably the main reasons why the KO TKO will happen. But as mentioned before, I think this will be a hard fought KO TKO. I don't think this will just be an easy stoppage, an easy win. Like, no, definitely Charlo's gonna have to fight for it. Charlo's definitely gonna have to, really impose himself and ultimately shake off that ring rust. LaManna's tough, he's durable, he's got really good shot selection, he comes forward well, he's able to use his height and his reach to good effect. He's obviously he's also really good in the clinch as well. On the inside, he's particularly good. I think LaManna is solid on the inside. He's able to, get the body shots going, get the combinations working. He's somebody who's very good on the inside, very good inside the clinch. So definitely this won't be an easy stoppage for Charlo, but I do think that between round 7 and 10, near the end of the fight, Jermall Charlo will have been able to break down LaManna enough to where he can get the stoppage. I think he's going to start to pick him apart sort of in the mid stages of the fight. Maybe the early rounds might be won by LaManna because Charlo's still trying to find his feet, he's still trying to shake off the ring rust. But I think from the mid stages onwards is when Charlo's going to start to take control, start to pick apart LaManna, start to exploit, the fact that LaManna overextends and he tends to, get a bit too involved in trading. LaManna also doesn't necessarily have the best gas tank. We've definitely seen in the past that he does tend to get tired, and I think that Jermall Charlo making use of the body shots and the head movement will be able to tire him out further. So for these reasons, I think it will be a Jermall Charlo knockout / technical knockout between round 7 and 10. So the Caleb Plant fight I've slated to go to the decision. However, this one I think will be a stoppage. So really hope you guys enjoyed that. All in all, I think LaManna and Charlo are both solid fighters. Props to LaManna for rebuilding his career, and props to LaManna because he is a solid fighter, he is dangerous, and he definitely will pose a difficult test for Jermall Charlo on his return. But I think that Jermall Charlo has that class, and I think that Jermall Charlo will be able to get the knockout / technical knockout, the stoppage, and I think he'll mainly be able to do that through his, his very good clean power punches, his combination punching, his ability to cut off the ring, and ultimately just his very composed, very calculated style, and his very calculated and composed pressure and power punches. So those are the main reasons. However, LaManna will certainly make this a difficult fight with his height, his reach, his weight, and ultimately just his really good ability to put together punches, select shots, and also fight on the inside. Those are the main things that LaManna does well. However, LaManna does have some defensive vulnerabilities and also has been stopped a few times and knocked out, and I think that's something that Jermall Charlo is going to want to do. And something I haven't even mentioned yet is that obviously Jermall Charlo is going to want to impress. He's going to want to put on a show. I don't think Jermall Charlo will settle for the stoppage. I don't think Jermall Charlo will settle for just the decision, and it's quite clear why. Obviously, the two fighters fighting on this night are Caleb Plant and Jermall Charlo, and it is being slated that if they both win their fights, they'll likely go on to fight each other later in the year. So Jermall Charlo is going to want to impress with a knockout, and also it's his first fight back, in so long. He's not fought since November of 2023. Chances are he's probably been forgotten on the pecking order, so he's going to want to obviously make a statement and try and get the stoppage in order to put himself back on that pecking order and also get the fight with Caleb Plant on. So that's my final predictions. I think Caleb Plant will defeat Jose Rezendiz by decision, and I think that Jermall Charlo will defeat Thomas LaManna by points. So no, sorry, by stoppage. Sorry, I completely messed that up. I think Caleb Plant will win his fight by decision, and I think that Jermall Charlo will win his fight by knockout / technical knockout by stoppage. So that's my final prediction. Caleb Plant by decision and Jermall Charlo by stoppage. So I really hope you guys enjoyed that. Please let me know down below if you agree with my predictions. Really enjoyed making this video. I'll also be releasing a reaction to this on Sunday, so do look forward to that. I've also decided to try something different on the channel, and I will be releasing a reaction podcast to the Champions League final on Saturday or tomorrow when you guys are watching this, because this will be out on Friday. So really hope you guys enjoyed that. I've never done a podcast about a game that isn't Arsenal related before, but it's the Champions League final, and I think it'll be a bit of fun. So really hope you guys enjoy that. So today I released this video, tomorrow the Champions League final reaction, and then Sunday I will also be releasing the Plant and Charlo fight reaction. So really hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you guys so much for all the support you've given me recently. Have a great day. Really appreciate it if you got this far, and if you did, remember to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications for more podcasts regularly. Please let me know down below who you think will win the Plant and Charlo fight, and I'll see you guys at another podcast soon. Bye bye.